Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Alex, and it's time to take a look back at the season that was, with the Super Bowl wrapping up yesterday. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. First off, dominating performance. I mean, there was no doubt after they went up 24-0. There was no doubt that it was over. At least that's when I started feeling like the game was completely over. Yeah. Anyways, let's just go over some of the because if you watched the channel, I made some prediction videos for each division at the beginning of the season, and then I made a prediction video for the playoffs. So I'm going to go back, take a look at my predictions from those videos, and tell you all what I got right and what I got wrong. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to go ahead and start with the NFC. We're just going to go through all of the regular season predictions that I put out there before we get to the playoffs here. So we're going to start with the NFC. What did I get right in the NFC? Got the Green Bay Packers correct. Now, obviously, I can't really, it's kind of impossible to predict the exact schedule correctly, but I did get this record right. The Green Bay Packers did finish 11-6. Not exactly in the way that it looks right here, but this is pretty much just a copy and paste from what I had at the beginning of the season. But you see that number over there, 11-6. It's exactly what happened for this Packers team. But one thing that I was not expecting with an 11-6 record would be the 7 seed. So that kind of happened. I also got the Carolina Panthers record exactly correct at 5-12. Again, didn't happen exactly the way that you see in front of you. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Falcons late in the year as well. So it's not completely the same. But I did get a couple of those wins correct. I got their Arizona win and their New Orleans win correct. But yeah. Hey, this is what I thought was going to be happening. I thought that Bryce Young was going to be able to take some strides. It wasn't going to be enough, but I felt like with just how bad their season was last year and how the roster I just felt wasn't very complete, even if Bryce Young gets a little better, they would get to 5 wins. And frankly, he needed to be benched, and throughout all the drama this year for him, they had a really nice, strong finish, and they'll be I think they'd be a trendy pick by the time we get to about August to make the playoffs. I think that there are going to be some people out there who really think they're going to try to call it, if you will, right? Then we have the New York Giants. I'm going to go ahead and just throw in teams as well that I got one game off from what the record ended up being, 1 or 2 games. This is... I didn't think that this Giants team was very good this year. I think they lost too many important pieces, and with what was left, I didn't think that they were going to really kind of pull it all together. I did call their win against Seattle. That one, I look back on it, it's like, oh, that's kind of nice. At least one of the 4 wins that I got was right. But 3 wins, it's one game off. The idea remains the same. This team was not good. I didn't think they were going to be good, and they're going to be picking. And the weird thing is that finished 3-14. They're going to be picking 3rd in the draft this year. Then we go to the Detroit Lions. Now this is 2 games off. They're 15-2 record, but I'm going to go ahead and just put this in here because I got them right and picked them for the division, which I got right. So I'm just kind of throwing it in there as that I didn't think there was any chance unless something happened. And even something did happen with the Lions this year. They had so many injuries defensively, yet they still won 15 games. Didn't do anything in the playoffs, but still a phenomenal regular season despite all the defensive injuries. And it just took it a little longer than you'd think for it to come back and haunt them. That's why I got them in here. And that's why I've got the Eagles in here. Even though they went 14-3, I did also have them winning the NFC East. And so, I got this right. I only got 1 loss wrong, and that was their loss at Tampa. They lost Atlanta, and they lost at Washington. I did call that they were going to split with Washington, though, which I'm very happy about, and you'll see why in a second. But yeah, I thought that Philly, there were a lot of people this year that thought that the collapse that the Eagles had at the end of last season was really bad, and they're just not going to recover. They're going to fall flat on their face, and they're just going to collapse. I didn't think that was the case. I thought they just bolstered in the right spots. Of course, some of their biggest acquisitions in the offseason, Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean, made huge plays in the postseason and the Super Bowl. I mean, that's it right there. They had a couple missing pieces, and they got the exact players that they needed, and a lot of their offseason acquisitions were massive hits for this team this year. So I wasn't buying the fall-off that a lot of people were expecting from the Eagles this year. Obviously, I was right in that assumption since they just won the Super Bowl. Let's jump over to what I got wrong. Yeah, there were a couple bad picks, bad predictions for the NFC this year. A couple really nice ones that I had, but a couple bad predictions. I'm going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go with like about four wins, the difference from what I predicted and what they actually finished, about four or more. Of course, the Cardinals finished with an 8-9 record. I was not expecting them to really even compete this year. You can see they even beat out my ceiling, what I had at the beginning of the year. They beat the Rams at home. They really were competitive down the stretch too. It wasn't just they won a couple games at the end of the season. Like they played really well down the stretch and throughout the season. They lost a couple games to end the year after they got eliminated, but they played their way into a position to play meaningful football in December, something not a lot of people really thought they were going to be doing at the beginning of the season. And then we have the Minnesota Vikings, a team that I'm 100% sure the majority of people thought were going to place either third or fourth in the NFC North this season, and were going to have a bad year. Objectively, just have a bad year, regardless of the J.J. McCarthy injury or not. But especially with the J.J. McCarthy injury, like, look, they got some talent, but can they really have Sam Darnold lead them to the postseason? It's what he did, and not only that, they won 14 games, the most ever without winning a division title, which is kind of ridiculous, by the way. But at the same time, one and done in the playoffs. But at the same time, they had a phenomenal regular season, a season that started with 3, 4, 5 straight wins. I had them going 0-5 in that first stretch, and they went 5-0. And then they lost the first game I thought they were going to win. I thought they were going to surprise Detroit and beat them, but then they lost that game. So it was really, really interesting how this season went for the Vikings. They started out hot, stumbled a little bit against the Lions and Rams, and then won every game from there on out until Week 18 and the postseason. A really unique season for this Vikings franchise, and I will more than be okay eating this. They proved me wrong. Kevin O'Connell won Coach of the Year, and it's well deserved with what he did with this team, a team that a lot of people wrote off before the season even started, including me. And here's the big one. This is probably one of the worst takes I had this year. I thought Washington just did not have a deep roster this year. New coach, new quarterback, didn't love the weapons around him. And obviously, that offense was electrifying all season. They finished with the exact opposite record than I predicted them to have. I predicted they were going to have 12 losses. They had 12 wins. They not only made the playoffs, but they won 2 playoff games. I mean, a magical season for the Commanders that I can assure you not a lot of people were giving them 12 wins at the beginning of the season. A lot of people were saying, maybe they'll probably be around 500 and have a nice start with Jaden Daniels, but I don't think there were very many people who were predicting them to not only go to the playoffs, but make it to the NFC Championship game. One of the predictions that I got completely wrong. This is probably the biggest one, the biggest miss I had this season. Really, really surprising all year long. It really started in their road game against Cincinnati. That's when you're like, oh, maybe this Washington team is pretty good. And then they play very well throughout the majority of the season. They get the Hail Mary, and they just coast for the rest of the year as an underdog. And, well, they had a phenomenal season. I don't think there should be any Commanders fans hanging their head down, shaking their head about this season. It was a phenomenal year. But now the expectations start to go up next season for Jaden Daniels in his sophomore year. Can he replicate the type of season he had this year? But, of course, I didn't think he was going to have this type of season at all to begin with. Obviously, I was proven very wrong. And now we have the Chicago Bears. Yeah, this one's totally on me. I bought into the hype. I bought into the flashy names in the skill positions, the homegrown talent. But, one thing, I came to a conclusion at the end of this season. Coaching really matters. Coaching really does matter. Matt Eberflus was a terrible head coach. Lost the Bears several football games this year. Dan Quinn, he knows how to manage a game clock. And he's able to get the best out of his players out in Washington. And it's a big reason why this and this are both in this section. Because I overlooked the coaching aspect of the team this past season. And it's one thing that I learned you really have to take into account. How good is the coaching staff? Because you can have great talent all you want. You have a really bad head coach that can't manage a game clock, can't scheme correctly, your team's still going to be really bad. And that's exactly what the Chicago Bears were this year. And I had them at 10 wins. I had them sneaking into the playoffs. Yeah, that one's on me. They finished below the floor that I set for them, too, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it's a 5 win difference here. This is a bad miss. And then here's another pretty obvious miss from this season. A team that just got absolutely wrecked by injuries across the board, and just the season got lost pretty early into the season. Losing to the Cardinals, losing to the Rams, losing to the Vikings. And once they lost at Kansas City, it did feel pretty dire. I will say the moment where I felt the season had completely fallen apart for the Niners was their road game in Green Bay. They got completely destroyed. The next week, they got completely destroyed by Buffalo as well. And I felt like that was the moment where they had lost the season. And, yeah, I mean, with the way that they had played last season, with the talent that was coming back, all signs showed another really strong showing from this Niners team. And that's not what we got this year. I had them at 13 wins, and I had them beating the Lions in Week 17, which would have given them a tiebreaker for the number 1 seed in the NFC. They finished 6-11. That's a bottom 5 finish in the NFC this year. So, a lost season to several different factors. I wouldn't be surprised if they rebound and make the playoffs next season, but this is a pretty pivotal offseason for San Francisco. And now we move into the AFC. I want to tell you guys, the AFC was very hit or miss for me this year. I did get quite a handful of these things correct, but I also got a lot wrong. We're going to start with the New England Patriots. This is what I thought was going to be, this is a team I thought was going to have the number 1 overall pick at the end of the season. And they winning just 3 games all year. I didn't love their roster at all. I thought coaching was a bit of a problem as well. But they won 4. Like, they won 1 more. And they won that last game against Buffalo, mainly because the Bills are resting starters. But I don't know. I got really close. I had them pretty bad. The worst team in the league, actually. And, well, they were pretty close to that mark. So I will say I got this one right. And I also got this one right. I also got this one right on the nose. There are some people who really thought the Raiders were actually going to be a really good team this year. Had a chance to be a good team this year. I was not buying it. I thought there was maybe a little bias because I didn't like their quarterback situation, but their defense still had Max Crosby and a couple other guys. Maybe they'll win a couple more games than I'm giving them here. I'm not giving them much. I'm not giving much leeway with the Raiders here, and especially with the fact that I had them at a 2-1 start. But they started the season 2-2, and I didn't like the team from the start, and they proved to me that they were not a good team at all, and they just fell off a cliff. And they actually won a couple games down the stretch to really take them out of the running for the first overall pick. But I got this number exactly correct. I had them winning against the Saints. I think that's the one game I got right for me. That's the one game I predicted correctly as a win for the Raiders. But I'm going to be doing my victory lap with this. I got this one right, and I'm very happy about this. Again, I'm also very happy with this one. I also got this one just 1 game off, but they lost 1 more game than I thought they were going to, which is kind of ridiculous. I thought 4-13 was being a bit harsh on the Titans. The AFC is just kind of one of those. It's the conference that's very top heavy, and I just didn't love their schedule. You know, the NFC North is a pretty tough draw, but I also was just like, I didn't love Will Levis. I mean, even with Ridley and D-Hop and Tyler Boyd, I was second guessing myself right before their first game against the Bears. I was like, maybe they're going to be a little better, but you know what? I got to stick with it. 4-13. And they're actually going to be the team that holds the number 1 overall pick. They won the Tank Bowl this year. So, I mean, I got this one right. Here's another team that I was almost on the nose for. I got the Colts at 9-8. They finished 8-9. They're a bit of a sad team. They weren't really that good this year, in my opinion. I thought that I was kind of hopeful that Anthony Richardson was going to elevate the team. He did not. But despite their struggles throughout the entire season, they still found a way to win 8 games, which is honestly quite impressive, despite some of the poor performances throughout the year. But I mean, I got it pretty close. I just had the wrong record. They finished 8-9 instead of 9-8. I mean, it's as close as you can get without hitting it on the nose. We're staying in the AFC South again. We have the Houston Texans. I had them at 11-6. I thought that CJ Stroud was going to be still pretty good. I didn't think they were going to get a ton better, but I thought that they were going to win a couple games that they probably shouldn't. Mainly that game in Kansas City. But obviously they won. I mean, literally the only difference would be that game in Kansas City. I mean, they did beat the Bills, but you know, it's like they were kind of right there. I thought they were going to win the division. I didn't think it was going to be incredibly close. I think the division really this year depended on if the Colts or Jaguars were going to take the next step and really compete with the Texans, which didn't really happen. So I got this right. And then you get the Ravens, which they finished 12-5, but I'm going to put them on here mainly because I got them right as the division champions this year. And I thought that they were going to have 13 instead of 12. I was not expecting an 0-2 start from this Ravens team. I'll tell you that much. I was not expecting an 0-2 start. But they rebounded in a big way, beating Dallas and then beating Buffalo right after, beating Cincinnati, beating Washington, beating Tampa, and it took, weirdly enough, the Cleveland Browns to beat them. And I got the split with the Browns correct, just the wrong game, but they had a good season. I mean, at this point, with the window that they're in, you're kind of sitting there like, we need to get to a Super Bowl here soon. And that's exactly right. This was probably one of the better shots they had, but the AFC is incredibly top-heavy, and they were just on the outside looking in again. And then I'm not going to talk much here. I only have the Chiefs on here because I got them as the division champions, not necessarily because I got their record correct. They finished 2 games better than what I'd originally slated them to be. I did call their loss in Buffalo, but they're only on here literally just for the fact that I called them winning the division again, which is not a very impressive, correct decision. And then here is what I got wildly wrong in the AFC. The Cleveland Browns. I thought that Deshaun Watson wasn't going to be as bad as Deshaun Watson was this year. I'm just going to be straight up honest. With the fact that Kevin Stefanski led Joe Flacco in as a backup on a run to the postseason last year, incredibly impressive, and he deserved Coach of the Year last year. I was hoping that he was going to have another nice coaching job to really carry Deshaun Watson to a respectable record. Not great, not going to the playoffs, but not awful. Kind of just mediocre, which I thought was really where this team was going to sit this year. And obviously did not go their way in the slightest. They went 3-14. They're going to have the second overall pick this season. I'm really interested to see what they do with it. I'm going to be honest. We'll see. We'll see. But Cleveland just was, I didn't think they were going to be that bad, but they were that bad this year. Tough sledding for the Browns again. And then we moved to Jacksonville. The same margin of error that I had with the Browns. 5 wins, only from 9-8 to 4-13 instead. This is really interesting. This was a really quiet, bad season for the Jags. They had like a quick fall off. They were the last team in the NFL to win a game, by the way. They were the only team that was 0-4, which I thought was kind of nice this year in the NFL. There wasn't a team that started like 0-8 or 0-9. Every team had won a game by the time week 5 wrapped up. But at the same time, I think once the Jags started 0-4, everyone really just forgot about them. And they just quietly slid around, hung around in a couple games like they did against Green Bay and Philadelphia. Not Green Bay and Jacksonville, duh. And they even hung around with the Vikings for a little bit too, but they just couldn't find a way to win some games. Had to start Mac Jones a little bit, so it's just kind of a lost season for Jacksonville. And then I'm gonna throw Buffalo in here, even though it's only I got the difference at only 3 games. I'm gonna still put them in here because let me tell you, a lot of people really thought they were going to be bad this year. I was also not on the Buffalo's going to fall off a cliff train as some people were. I thought they were still going to be a good team. I thought that Josh Allen was just that good. He's going to will this team to at least a respectable record. I didn't think they were going to be 13-4, but I didn't think they were going to be, down at like 6-11 at the floor that I had set for them. I thought 10-7 was going to be respectable and around where they were going to be sitting by the time the playoffs came about, but that obviously was not the case. They won the division convincingly, got the 2 seed, and made it to the AFC Championship game. And then the big loser in the AFC, the New York Jets, probably the most disappointing team in the league this year. Had them at 11-6. Actually, this is the second year I've actually picked the Jets to win the division. I didn't make any videos the year before this year, so if you want to go look for that, you're not going to be able to find it. But I know that I picked the Jets to win the AFC East last season as well as this season. Horrifically wrong in both years. The first one, because Aaron Rodgers got hurt, but man, I was not expecting 5-12, a 6-win difference between where I thought they were going to be and where they actually finished up. Aaron Rodgers proved that the injury really got to him. The guy is washed, and now he just, if he wants to copy Brett Favre, he just goes to Minnesota for a year or 2 and calls it a career. So we'll see, but the Jets I have no idea where they go from here. They're in a really sticky situation, and hopefully Aaron Glenn can turn things around for Gotham Green. But here's the other big miss from me this year in the AFC. This was the big miss of a team that actually exceeded expectations. The Broncos finished 5 wins better than I had predicted this year. I will gladly eat this. I'm very happy to see the Broncos back in the postseason. It's been way too long. And they really played a really solid season. Bo Nix had some good coaching. Sean Payton proving to be the right coach for Bo Nix in his rookie season. And they've had a solid year. They struggled their first 2 weeks. They beat Tampa on the road convincingly, who beat Philly the next week convincingly. So, I mean, Denver played a good season this year, and I am very happy to go ahead and swallow my pride and just say I was flat out wrong with this. Congrats to Denver. This one well-deserved. I'm hoping that they can improve next season and possibly threaten for a division title. Same thing goes with the Chargers, though I had them only at 8-9. They finished 11-6, but not enough to really get onto this list, I'd say. But this is a big one that I missed. So let's go ahead and jump right into the playoffs here. I'm going to go ahead and throw the NFC divisional round picture in here. That's pretty much as far as I'm going to get with what I got right. I got 3 of the 4 teams right. I got 1 of the 2 matchups correct. The only game I didn't predict right in this bracket was Minnesota losing to the Rams. I thought they were going to win that game. Obviously not the case. But we'll see right here with what I got wrong that things didn't last very well. I didn't do great. I only got 50% of the divisional round correct in the AFC. But you look at the Final Four, I only got 2 of the 4 teams correct in this. So this is a big miss from me. I mean, I thought that KC and Philly were going to get here. No way did I think Detroit was losing to Washington. Obviously, Washington, again, proved me wrong, as they have all season. And then, yeah, it was kind of a bit of a toss-up with the Bills and the Ravens. I'm not super mad about that pick. But I am super mad about this pick. I'm putting my Super Bowl pick in right here. This is bad. This was bad. I got this completely wrong. I got the 2 Super Bowl teams in the Final Four picture, but I had them both losing in the conference championship game. Oh, by the way, these 2 teams didn't make it out of the divisional round. This is a massive loss, in my opinion. I can't believe that the first year that I publicly put out my Super Bowl prediction at the beginning of the playoffs, I completely blew it. This is the crowning jewel of misses this year for me. I think that, man, this would have been so awesome to see in the Super Bowl this year, but also I totally missed this. Both teams massively underperformed in the postseason, and who knows where those 2 teams go next year, especially Detroit with losing both their coordinators to head coaching jobs. And how do the Ravens rebound, and how much can they keep around? That's kind of the big question I got going into the offseason as well. And we've reached the end of my content for the 2024-25 NFL season. Man, I thought this was a really nice season. A pretty memorable season, in my opinion. Mainly, I kind of associate that with the team that I follow as well. This is a memorable season, all right. Not a good memorable season, but, memorable. And while we didn't get the Super Bowl matchup that I think a lot of us really wanted, I still think that the actual season itself still had a lot of great moments. I think the biggest thing to take away from the season as a whole, just across the league, rookie quarterback play was really good this year across the board. We had 6 guys drafted in the first round. 4 of them played significant action. And while not all 4 of them had the dream season that 1 or 2 did, I think there's brighter days ahead for all 4 of those starters, and even the 2 guys who didn't start a lot or didn't start at all. So I think that there's a lot. It's about time we had some quarterback prospects that came into the league and are really looking to be truly franchise guys. And I think that that's really important and huge for the league as we enter the latter half of the 2020s. But anyways, thank you guys so much for a phenomenal season. Whether you watch one video, only my Bears fan reaction videos, or every single video, thank you for a great season. I hope to talk to you all again real soon. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. We'll have draft content, all that stuff, a couple off-season videos probably. Maybe, we'll do some UFL content because, I'm hopelessly addicted to football. I'm not a snob when it comes to, this game was just not good. It was really sloppy. I just like watching football. Maybe I'll do a UFL video or 2. I'm going to say that, and I'm not going to do any. It's probably going to happen, but, put it out there. Maybe it happens. Anyways, please subscribe if you want to see more from me. Keep the conversation going in the comment section below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later. Have a good one.